Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm chatting with Simon Clarke from American Potash. In this interview, we get into the potash market and the impact that the Russia-Ukraine situation had on the potash market initially to where it is today, and why Simon is bullish on where potash is heading in the near future. We also get into American Potash, which is Simon's new play he is involved in, and you may want to keep an eye on it because Simon previously had some pretty big success with a company called American Lithium, and he plans to take that same strategy and repeat it with American Potash. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Simon, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I got to ask you about the potash market. A decade ago, it was quite the story, but ever since it's been relatively quiet. What can you tell us about the current state of the potash market?
I would say that the potash market is poised to have a resurgence here. You have compound annual growth rates globally of 3 to 5%. And I think with us, really, we are also very much a U.S. domestic critical minerals play, both on the potash side, and obviously we'll talk about lithium later. But there's a premium being paid right now for producing potash in the U.S. and MOP, muriate of potash, which is what we produce. It's the main ingredient for most fertilizers globally. 96% of that is imported into the US. So there's very, very little domestic production. So you get a premium actually for producing locally, and we think it's going to become more and more of a critical mineral story in the US.
So where's all the potash coming from today in America? Is it coming from Europe, Africa? Where's it coming from?
A lot of it comes from Canada. Canada is the biggest producer of potash, but about 38% of it comes, or historically has come from the Ukraine and Belarus, and obviously a lot of that is off the market. So they've had to source other supplies. A lot of it's Chinese based, and then as you say, countries in Africa. So it's a bit of a hodgepodge, and there's a lot of countries that don't necessarily have the US's best interests at heart. So, again, potash is now being put forward as a critical mineral, and we'd expect it to be adopted as such, very, very shortly.
Is it mostly used in agricultural products, or is it used in stuff outside of agriculture?
Yeah, it's used for fertilizers. I mean, part of the problem in places like Africa and South America in particular is they don't use enough fertilizers, so the soil gets depleted. In North America, obviously, the agricultural sector is a lot more developed, and so there's much more of a scenario where people use fertilizers as a matter of course. And MOP, which is the potash we produce, is the critical ingredient in just about every fertilizer.
So my understanding is potash started to see a bit of a resurgence there after Russia walked into Ukraine. It's come down since. What's the impact of the Russia-Ukraine situation on the price of potash?
Well, as you say, it spiked. And then, I think the market found alternate sources. The problem becomes the longer that those countries stay off market, the more strained the new supply chains become. And, as I mentioned, you have other countries like China and parts of Africa where potash is coming from as well that are challenging as well. So I think when you look from a critical minerals perspective, there's really only one major producer of MOP in the US right now. It's a company called Intrepid. And, they do get a premium for their products, and we think that's going to start to accelerate.
So let's talk about American Potash, which is a company that you recently got involved with. What's the high-level overview of the company? Why did you choose to get involved?
Yeah, so I was the CEO of American Lithium. So obviously my background is very much critical minerals. It was cobalt, and then historically, and then lithium over the last 4 or 5 years. I just saw a hugely undervalued company with a very large. I mean, the reason I got involved, quite frankly, is some of the players involved with it. It's David Elliott, Andrew Williams' story from Haywood. They tend to get involved in extremely good projects. The founder of the project was a guy called John Gregg, and John's found a lot of mineral projects globally over the years. Probably 30, 40 million ounces of gold. He's also got an oil and gas background. And he brought the project because the Paradox Basin has a deep history of oil and gas. So there's a lot of knowledge from those oil and gas wells for what is in the Paradox Basin. So this isn't greenfield drilling. This is brownfield. So we have production 20 minutes up the road from us from Intrepid. We've got all these oil and gas wells and data which shows what's there. A really good group that brought the project to the fore originally. And then, obviously there have been issues down the line and over the last 10 years getting permits and losing permits and then getting them back. And so the company has really missed a lot of the last potash cycle. In the interim, though, what has obviously happened is lithium has become a real commodity with a real focus on that. And the other big piece around us is the work that's been done on the lithium side. So a lot of heavy lifting, proving that you can produce significant amounts of lithium from the Paradox Basin. So you put both of those together. Obviously, I come at it first with a lithium hat, but then you look very much at what's happening with potash and the critical minerals nature of that. And I just see a hugely undervalued company with lots of potential. If we can move it forward, we've now got all the licenses back. So right across our whole 32,500 acres, we have the rights to explore for lithium and potash. And really the next step for us is to do some brownfield / confirmation drilling and then put a resource together. So I think there's lots of news flow. And as I say, as these markets, as lithium rebounds and potash, moves through the cycle, I think we're going to see more and more focus on these domestic resources.
What do the current exploration plans look like for American Potash?
Well, so like I said, it literally, the company lost, through, who knows the history of the company. They lost their federal potash licenses about 10 years ago. And then it's been a process for the company to get those licenses back. Literally 2 weeks ago, we announced we had those licenses back. So those combined with our state licenses give us access to a very large project right in the heart of the Paradox Basin. We have 3 permitted holes on our state lands, and through this latest grant of licenses, we have an additional 4 holes we can drill on our federal lands. So it's deep drilling. These holes are up to 10,000 feet deep. You have at about 5,000 to 6,000 feet, you have the potash layers or cycles as they're called. And then, 8,000 to 9,000 feet, you've got the lithium brines. So, deep holes, expensive holes, probably about $1 million a hole. So we want to drill a hole to confirm what we know we've got from the historic data and all the work around us. And then I think with another 3 holes beyond that, we would be in position to come out with a maiden potash and lithium resource. So lots of news flow, lots of positive events on the horizon here.
So, Simon, when I think about junior mining and what needs to happen for you to be successful in this role, I think, okay, it's one thing to have an interesting project. Clearly, you guys have that here. But the bigger thing is you've got to be able to go and rally the investor community to believe in what you're doing so that they will go and pick up shares, want to get involved, find a way to help you and help go build that $100 million to $1 billion company that is the whole reason that we get into this business in the first place. Now, I know that you had some pretty big success there with American Potash, and here you're involved with a tiny little nano cap. What is it that you got to do in order if I'm at home watching this interview and I'm saying, okay, this is a tiny little penny stock trading less than 10 cents. I've got some risk dollars. I'm willing to take a shot at this. What is it that you could say to them to make them say, I've got this. I can get the investor community to back me, and we've got a good plan to move this forward. How do you go about doing that in your role, especially given your past experience with American Lithium?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, there's everything we can do. We can get out there, we can tell the story, we can pound the drum, we can walk the street, whatever, and we will do all of that. But really, timing is everything. And so, obviously, lithium has had a tough year or so. We've seen the commodity fall from 85,000 a ton to close to $10,000 a ton. It's now bottomed. Last week, we saw Rio Tinto make a huge bet on lithium, which I think basically underpins the sector now as a real sector. You've got a player like that spending $6.7 billion to really get in it, and help drive it forward. So I think that's really strong validation. So I think you're going to see, from a timing perspective, this is the time for people to get in, because lithium stocks across the board have been beaten up, they've been knocked down, and you're getting in at great valuations. If a company like Rio, who's done all their due diligence, believes in the sector, I think that tells you a lot. And then on the potash side, again, yes, the prices come off from higher levels last year when Russia invaded Ukraine, but it's a really critical minerals market as well. And by that I mean, the US is now going to take real steps to safeguard the security of its agriculture and its food sector, just like it is doing on the industrial and commercial side, on the lithium side. So I think timing again is everything, and I think both commodities here are poised to move forward. And I think the other piece that you're seeing is you're seeing a lot of funding come from the federal and state governments to encourage this move to the new energy paradigm, if you want to call it that, on the lithium side, but also to safeguard the U.S. agricultural sector as well. So again, I think I can go out there and I can be as smart as I like, and I can say whatever I like, and I certainly will. But again, I think with all these things, timing is everything, and I think both these commodities are really well positioned.
Well, Simon, thanks very much for hopping on here today. I'm very interested to see what you can do here. I think it's a pretty interesting asset in the sense that there's not a lot of micro cap potash names out there. You got a little bit of a kicker, a little bit of optionality with the lithium, and hopefully you can keep coming back here on the future, and we can continue to communicate to our audience as you roll out your strategy with American Potash.
Would love to do that, and would love to keep updating people. So, whenever you want me back, just let me know.
Thanks, Simon.
Cheers now.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.